Got a beautiful fall morning here, and I've got our little Zelda strapped onto the front and was walking around in the high tunnel out at our neighbor Ian's behind me. While we're walking around, I thought it would be fun to show what's going on in that high tunnel. Hello, Zelda. And first I'm going to pick her some autumn olives so she can eat those. It's just about her favorite fruit along with figs, and then we'll take a wander in the high tunnel. These are in the chickens' run here, summer run / winter run now, for their enjoyment. But we realize this is just about Zelda's top tier favorite thing. These small fruits are amazing for feeding birds like chickens, but also kids really enjoy these too. So deeply nourishing. It's a perfect size snack for a little one. This is our 14 by 50 foot tunnel after a few frosts outside. I think this space experienced 1 or 2 frosts for itself in the last few nights. It definitely frosted outside. All the tomatoes and peppers are zapped and done out there. I think the cold got a little bit into here. Some things that are somewhat frost tender, like the figs, but they kind of need it a little bit deeper than just a nip. They got some damage on their leaves, but they're still going to finish making some more fruits. They've actually made quite a number of fruits. It's one of Zelda's favorites, and Sasha's been enjoying cooking them onto tarts and things like that. Figs are going to be a stronger element in here over the years for sure, because they just are very competent when it gets super hot and super dry. We have very limited water to water with in here, so they're a good fit. Likewise, the hot peppers did pretty nicely for themselves, and in this space just a little further in, a little further from the edge and the door, we still have some serious cayenne going on. I think some damage happened. You can see some curl where the leaves got a little zipped by the frost. Some of those that are further from the soil, there's a little less thermal buffering a little higher up, and they got zapped from the frost. And that's fine. We'll do a finishing harvest and get those out of here. But a little deeper into the tunnel, you can see where they're further from the edge. There's so many little microclimates with this sort of system. You can see these habaneros are still actively producing fruit and doing well. But then these tomatoes, which are trellised and higher up and exposed to cooler air, they got a little nip from the frost. So we'll go through and harvest the tomatoes green or ripe, and then bring them inside and let them ripen and finish slowly. Yeah, we'll enjoy them slowly over the next few days and weeks. Every few days, Sasha comes out with Zelda to pick some fruits. She picks figs for her and to cook with, and also tomatoes to cook with, and does some hand watering. So Zelda's been spending a lot of time in here this summer, and on the cooler mornings it's a really nice thing to come out because she does not want to wear socks, and so we tuck in a foot or two on the cool mornings. But once the sun comes up in here, it's actually nice and warm. This kid likes to run without socks. What are you going to do? Something that I feel like we got pretty right this year. We'll see how it pans out over time. But in the last few weeks, the tomatoes were growing very, very actively up until the frost that happened a few evenings ago. In the last few weeks to the north of the tomatoes, so in the shade of them, we put transplants of lettuces that we had started earlier. So these were started, I want to say like 4 to 6 weeks ago, and they were transplanted into the shade of the tomatoes with the idea that as the tomatoes senesce and die from freeze or from end of season stuff, the lettuces will be able to fill out and grow for the rest of the winter. We're trialing that same concept under the figs as well. The figs are a lot thirstier and hungrier, and so these lettuces are stunted, so we have to water them a little bit more often. But the idea is that once the first killing frost comes in and the fig leaves are knocked back, we can use those big leaves as a deep, deep mulch around the lettuces. The kale and the lettuce can enjoy full light and full access to nutrients for the winter. And then in the spring, when they get ready to bolt, the figs leaf out again to protect them from the heat of the early season. You can see all this red Russian kale, there's seedling lettuces all throughout. So the understory of the winter context of this high tunnel has been set in motion. These that are underneath these low tunnels, I think would actually have a chance to be extremely abundant, luscious heads of lettuce all winter. We'll have to see. The figs, I've got some ideas finally. In the fall, once they senesce, we will take some cuttings and bring them below these hoops, and then put poly over this. We'll take lots of cuttings, maybe offer them in the winter, and then in the spring we'll train them horizontal and let them send up shoots to fruit on. So it's a little bit less total craziness of fig plants in here, but a little bit more production for other things as well. Figs, it feels like if we don't really actively manage them assertively, we would lose diversity in this space pretty easily. That's been a frontier in this landscape, in the high tunnel, to really try to understand. I think we're finally getting a little bit of a sense, but we've so much further to go. Is we've got this hot weather life in here of hot peppers and figs and tomatoes. There's turmeric all throughout, which we'll have to dig relatively soon. There's tulsi, rosemary, on and on and on. And what happens when those senesce in the fall? So figuring out the timing, the transplanting seems to be working nicely. You can see these lettuces, they're comfortable with the shade because it's so hot during the days in here. And once that tulsi melts away and the figs drop their leaves, those little lettuces get all the rest of the light for the winter. But I wonder, is there another layer to this where we can be sowing seeds for things like parsley and kale and other things, spinaches, underneath the senescing and dying back tomatoes and peppers, and having them emerge at the right time in the spring? That's to be determined, but each year we'll try to add another layer of complexity in understanding temporal merging, like having one thing gently and graciously transition into another rather than having dead spaces. I just love the image here of a turmeric that's had a little bit of frost damage. They're finalizing their root formation so we can go in and dig them. They're winding down, and truly right at the exact same moment these lettuces are winding back up and getting ready to fill out, protect the soil, which is quite important to cover them for the winter, and be able to offer beautiful food throughout the winter months as well. What prompted me wanting to make this video is this area over here. This is the compost heating system. I'll link to it here, where we talked about the idea of using this ring to generate heat during the winter. Very, very quick idea is this is a static system, or it's a permanent installation as far as the metal and the posts. And then what we do is grow crops in the summer months on the aging compost, and then empty this out in the fall, which is what will happen sooner than later. Refill it with really raw compost and hay. In fact, you can see some of the fuel for this is right outside. That round bale and fall leaves will get shredded along with manures and food scraps, and that'll generate warmth to keep this space healthy and comfortable through the winter months for all those growing plants. But what we did this spring is we put in a habanero and 2 sweet potato slips. They were leftover shoots of sweet potatoes, and I finally pulled the first one here just to get us. The growth of the vines was immense, and I thought, I wonder how big those sweet potatoes got. This came out with just pulling because the soil is so rich and so soft. It's got veins on it. It's like very, very muscly looking. I would guess this is a few pounds, probably one of the biggest ones I've ever seen in my life. There's 2 of them about that size, and then a couple smaller ones. And this was just from a leftover sweet potato we stored over winter that was grown last year. We cured them next to the wood stove, and then they sprouted in the spring, planted in the sprouts, and here they grew. I'm going to cut back the rest of the vines and pull the other one and take a look. I just moved the habanero aside so I can see. You can see right down here is where that second sweet potato was planted. So there were just 2 plants that were put in that filled out this immense wall of greens in here. They got zapped from the frost, which is fine and expected. Pretty amazing to see all that green from just 2 slips. And this is the yield from the first plant. Kind of crazy, little extra pups on the side there. I'll pull the other one. Kind of awkward with a baby on front, camera in one hand and pulling with the other. So let me finish that. A 1-year-old little person next to 1 set of sweet potatoes. Baby, you got a lot of sweet potato to eat this winter, but you're pulling the hay instead. Look at that. That is a phenomenally large thing. I would say this cluster weighs more than my child. It's pretty amazing how much plants enjoy fertility. What do you think, Zelda? Should we roast them? How's Mom going to cook these? We'll have to see. This is definitely many a meal. Thanks, compost pile, for growing exquisite, beautiful things. Hot peppers and sweet potatoes from slowly curing compost. It generated heat in the spring to help seed starting and keep the figs comfortable, and then generated almost 2 baby weights worth of food for us for the winter with just 2 plants. I think next year we could do well to plant probably 6 in here. There's more than enough fertility. What do you think? Very strangely shaped. I think they were wrapped on one another. I don't think I've ever seen, I definitely have never seen a sweet potato this large. It feels really firm and really healthy as well. I think in the future, if we can grow sweet potatoes in truly 100% organic matter with biochar in a heated environment, watered with rainwater, we can maybe submit some of these to some competitions and see, or just enjoy meals with 10 to 15 people at a time. Anyway, that's this high tunnel in the late fall, kind of a wild scene, 14 by 50 feet, pumping out a lot of stuff. There's artichokes throughout here, which we'll explore next year if they overwinter. There's more hot peppers to harvest. There's perennial kales to enjoy all winter, and lettuces. There are these wild sweet potatoes to think about curing next to the wood stove. And I think Zelda's ready for some more autumn olives and maybe some breast milk and some breakfast. So we're out of here. Zelda, thank you very much for hanging with me while we walk around. You're ready to go out there? That sounds good to me too. Thanks for watching. Hope you are well where you are. Two plants.
But what are we doing with this?
I don't know.
What do you think, Zelda? You gonna eat that big potato? Okay, okay.